It has been a dramatic week for Clayton and Bachelor Nation, and we are going to break down the hottest takes with all of the updated tea. Hey guys, and welcome back to another shared news. We've got all the details you need to know surrounding Bachelor Nation fantasy suites. But before we get into it, you guys know the drill. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on any future videos. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Reality, joined by Gianna Gravelisi and Allison Van Dam. Gianna, remember like a week or two ago when all we could talk about was Love is Blind? Now we're here and all we could talk about is The Bachelor. Can you kind of explain the difference between the two of them right now?
Oh, well, is there really a difference? Because I feel like Bachelor Nation and Love is Blind Nation, if you will, are both having so much drama, both on and off screen. Love is Blind may be over, but there's so much happening. All the couples basically swapped. The ones that didn't get married are now all swapped. We'll get into that in another video here on Shared News in the near future. But with Clayton right now, the drama's happening both on screen and off screen. Next week is the finale. It's going to be over, but there's so much happening. We have Clayton going on podcasts, Shanae going on podcasts. It's just like he said, she said. So Love is Blind and The Bachelor are both in the same form of turmoil right now, in my opinion. So they're both just crazy,
Yeah.
always
It,
delivering drama.
it's just a lot going on, and we're gonna really get all into it. And I want to kind of take things basically where we left off because we saw Clayton, have his meltdown at Susie, but now he is defending his meltdown towards Susie on the Almost Famous podcast with Ashley I and Ben Higgins, saying the reason he flipped the switch so quickly on Susie is because in that moment he thought she was trying to get out of there to become the next Bachelorette. He's had other women during the process manipulate him before, like maybe Sarah, maybe Shanae, and he was scared in that moment that Susie was doing the same. Allison, does that warrant the way he kind of talked down to Susie? Is he just trying to add context? What do you think of this explanation?
This to me feels like he is grasping for straws. I feel like if that's how he felt in the moment, he probably would have alluded to that. He would have included that in their kind of back and forth because, maybe that would have posed more questions to people who are team Susie and made people more team Clayton. So if he was, thinking that or having those doubts, I think he would have been more vocal with that then. I think the fact that he's bringing it up now just feels kind of petty to me and maybe also alludes to the fact that maybe he and Susie are not together at this point. Maybe he didn't try and get back with her because it just feels like a very negative way to talk about someone who you supposedly were not only in love with, were the most in love with. It just feels like he's trying to get people over to his side. And for me personally, it's not working.
Ooh, well, what he specifically said is, I started having these really dangerous thoughts on being like, what if Susie right now is trying to get out of this? What if she's just saying whatever she needs to say to leave me so that she can become the next Bachelorette? And Clayton says that the next day he knew that wasn't the case. People are very much against me and favoring her. Gianna, what's your take on this?
I think that it's a defense mechanism. I think that Clayton is trying to do major damage control right now just because of all the backlash that he is facing. I feel like if you're the most in love with someone, then you're going to trust them and trust everything that they say. That's a part of loving somebody and being in love. That's a huge factor, which clearly Clayton knows nothing about love, as we know. So maybe he didn't realize that in the moment. Um, but Susie was visibly upset. I think that she was genuine. And I think that he knows that out of all the women that she's a really genuine woman. So this is like BS to me in a way. Like, how are you going to sit there and think, oh, wait, no, she's just trying to be the Bachelorette right now? Like, he's invalidating her feelings that she was feeling then and her feelings now. He should have acknowledged, like he was just kind of shook in the moment. He didn't know that Susie valued sex as much as she did. And that was that. Now he's just making these crazy excuses because everyone is team Susie and he can't handle the heat. So I think that this is just a made up excuse in order to try and control the situation.
He definitely can't handle the heat because, he's been just trying to stay off social media. He's been petrified for weeks. We've been reading all of these articles. I do agree with you guys where it's like that shouldn't have gone through his head that like Susie's trying to be the next bachelorette. Like he should have tried to like listen to her and understand her feelings so that they could have had a productive conversation, but instead he went red and he went into defense mode. And I think that's kind of why he lashed out at her. And because he's probably emotionally exhausted from this process. We have to play devil's advocate here. He has producers in his ear. He has had women try and manipulate him. Like, it's not the first time. So the fact that maybe the girl that he loved most could possibly be manipulating him, Gianna, could you understand now why maybe he was just like trying to, justify his actions a little bit? Or do you still think that there's no Team Clayton over here? Because yesterday, me and Allison said we were 65% Team Susie, 35% Team Clayton.
I mean, I guess the point you just made can justify his actions a little bit, but I'm just thinking back to his tweets and the women tell all when Clayton was like, I knew nothing that was going on in the moment. I didn't know I was getting manipulated until watching it back. So, if we're going to roll with what he said in that statement, he didn't know that he was getting manipulated. He just thought he was dealing with these crazy women and he was sending women home. So, I I don't know. Like, I'm still 100% Team Susie at the end of all of this.
Ooh.
Like, I get that he was emotionally and physically exhausted, but like, so was she. Like, she was literally dealing with a guy that, like, picture your own life. Like, you're about to get engaged to somebody, and you just learned that they said to two other women that they are in love with those women. And they had slept with both of those women at the same time. That is like he kept saying to Susie, you just dropped a
That's The
bombshell on
Bachelor.
me. That was a bombshell. I know it's The Bachelor, but that's also a bombshell for her. So he needed, as The Bachelor, to understand why she was acting out the way that she was too. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's justified. Maybe I'm like 5% Team Clayton. That's it.
Yeah, I mean
Five.
I mean, he did admit, that he lost his cool and that he should have had more patience with her. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see what plays out between the two of them and where they go from here and discuss this at After the Final Rose if he's still with her by any chance. I don't think they're together right now at all. I'm really getting the vibes that he's single, even though I'm still praying for Rachel. Allison, do you think that Susie was trying to be the Bachelorette, though? Was there any part of her that was trying to get out of there, or do you think she was just hurt?
Maybe I'm biased because we're all team Susie and I would love for her to be the next bachelorette, but she, I think, has been nothing but genuine this entire season. Even when Clayton
Hmm.
talked to her dad was saying that Susie was kind of, the inspiration or the moral standard that he and his wife tried to follow. Like as a parent, he looked up to his child. So that's not a character of someone or a characteristic of someone that I think we would see in Susie. I don't think she went into this thinking that that would be her path. I think she genuinely wanted to find love. I think she's really into Clayton. She was obviously devastated to hear that he had, said I love you to these other women, that he'd been intimate with these other women. And you could see the shock on her face. I didn't see any acting. I didn't see any sort of like production on her side. It felt very genuine and real. And if she is going to be our next bachelorette, I would love that. But honestly, I hate Clayton for putting this out there because now we all have doubts about her when in reality we were all so team
Yeah.
Susie now. Yeah, and so it's just again, he's grasping for straws, he's dragging her through the mud for no reason.
But can she be the next bachelorette? Because if he, really chases her, like, everyone is saying, and maybe tries to win her back, and then he ends up single, like, could they actually pick her to be the next bachelorette? Because then it just makes Clayton look like he got no happy ending. And it kind of they don't want to make him look like that either. They still want him to have this happy ending at the end.
I think it's definitely possible. It's going to come down to how they present it. If they bring her out at AFR and they show footage of him chasing after her and her countering all of his points by saying, I deserve someone who knew it was me. I deserve someone who doesn't talk to me this way, who doesn't treat me like this. She could get an edit that is very empowering, very much, pro Susie. And I think you would have an entire audience of people cheering for that announcement if they edit it the right way.
It all comes down to editing, guys, the music, what they show in conversations. Well, I want to continue on because Clayton is defending his decision to sleep with all three women, arguing that sex is something he takes very seriously. He says, sex is such a critical part of a relationship. I cannot get engaged to someone if there's no sexual chemistry. It's just me. Maybe that's not everybody else, but for me, that's so incredible. If I'm going to get engaged, it has to be there. So, I mean, listen, some leads do not have sex with all three people or they only have sex with one. Clayton just said it's who he is. He needs to know before he gets engaged. And he doesn't feel guilty about having sex with two of the women. Maybe he would have had sex with three if Susie didn't say no. Gianna, what's your thoughts on this?
So I've been thinking about this a lot. A lot. And I
Okay.
think the problem
Too
is
much.
I try to look at it through like the not that I try to look at it, I've been looking at it through the lens of like our actual reality in my own life. Like obviously that's not okay to do in real life, but again, this is The Bachelor, so that's the type of stuff that happens. Like producers have condoms on deck because they know that that's what goes on in the fantasy suites. And you know what? I agree with Clayton. I think that in a relationship, there needs to be some sort of intimate physical chemistry, of course. But here's my thing. In his little argument with Susie, he was saying, you were the one in my eyes. Like, I've been waiting for this night with you, and like I'm the most in love with you, and blah blah blah. If
Hmm.
he knew that it was Susie before fantasy
Yeah,
suites, why did you go and continue to sleep with the two other women? That's the only thing that's making me
that's a
angry
really
about
good
it. Because
point.
how are you going to sit here and say, like, yep, I knew it was going to be Susie, it was going to be her the whole time, but I'm also going to sleep with these two other women for fun? And in the conversation, he said that he didn't do that. He didn't just sleep with them because they were there and he had to. But it's like, then why did you do it if your argument is that like Susie was it and she was the one? Like, he wasn't making sense. He was kind of like running in circles with what he was saying. So his defense for sleeping with the other women didn't make sense to me in that moment. But like in life, sure, like sleep with whoever you want if you're going to try to figure it out. But like if you have one woman that you know is the one, there's no reason to be sleeping with anybody else. So, and I'm also just like, I
Mhm.
was saying this before the shoot, it's also, if Susie was the one and sex is that important to him, how can he go to say that she's the one? Like, what if sleeping with Susie was bad? What if he didn't like it with Susie? Like, that would have changed everything for him if he's putting physical intimacy on a pedestal like this. So it's like, I don't know. Everything he was saying did not make sense. So that's the only reason that I can't get behind what he said about sex being so
That's
important.
fair. That's a really good point. I mean, he wasn't super honest. Maybe if he told Susie, "Hey, I'm just a horny guy. I wanted to get my whatever, and I just needed to get it in." Like maybe if he said that and presented it, it would have been different. But it was the fact that he was dancing around the subject and he wasn't being honest. If he really loves Susie, and then this point he made is that he needs to kind of have sex before he gets engaged. Well, then maybe he was considering getting engaged to Gabby or Rachel, or maybe he should have told Susie right then and there, I loved them too. I just realized that after spending the night with them, that I'm no longer, I'm gonna choose you. So can you accept me? I had to kind of go to those lengths with those two girls just so I know that it was you in the end for extra clarity, and it was you. I feel like he just didn't know how to articulate anything he was saying, and that's why, she ended up like getting so upset and leaving, and that's why he ended up kicking her out. Now that like you're really putting this into perspective, I really do feel like it's getting harder to defend Clayton because he is going back and forth, back and forth. Allison, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page. The fact that he said, I could never propose to someone or get engaged with someone without seeing what our, sexual chemistry is or making sure that part of the relationship is there. Totally get that. But my question to him is, did you really think that it was 33% for each of them of who would be your final rose pick? I think that's like another red flag that goes up for me because I'm like, you're telling me you didn't know who you were going to propose to. And like it wasn't even just, oh, I
We
wasn't sure between two. You weren't sure between all three? I mean, I think we've all talked about this before of we've seen Rachel as maybe his top pick. We don't see it as much with Gabby, but regardless of who's, not his favorite or definitely not his top two at least, you still had to sleep with them to make sure. It just feels like, again, as Zach was saying, he just wanted to have sex with all of them. It really didn't have anything
And
to
then
do
just say
with
that.
proposing. He just wanted to hook up. Yeah. And if he'd been more honest, I
yeah.
think we would be in a very different position.
Maybe she would have been like, all right, I get it. You've been here 2 months. You've been being, teased by these girls, just making out. Normally he's probably not being celibate for 2 months in his real life. So it's like, maybe if you just communicated that, she would have been more receptive. And I felt like Susie gave him a lot of grace and patience, and she was receptive, trying to understand. But it was Clayton who was just kind of having his meltdown. Now, former Bachelorette Kaitlyn Bristowe has a hot take on this, as she was the first sex positive lead who openly slept with more than one person during her season. Kaitlyn says, when you're in that position, you're making a life-altering decision. You genuinely fall in love with more than one person, so why not be intimate with more than one person when you're trying to find the person to spend the rest of your life with? Why do we judge so hard on this? And she even suggested that Susie was in the wrong, saying these women should have had the conversation before the fantasy suite, like, hey, this is either okay with me or it's not. If you set those boundaries, then it's very much a different story. So this is a valid point, and I mean, Kaitlyn brings up a good point. I feel like if Susie said that she did not want to sleep with Clayton, or that it would have been a deal breaker, Gianna, do you think Clayton would have not slept with Gabby or Rachel?
Oh, okay. That is a good question. I feel like if Susie had said that prior to Fantasy Suites, I feel like Clayton would have gotten defensive again. You know what I mean? I feel like there would have been another like, well, what do you mean? Like, I have to explore that physical connection. Like, how are you gonna put me in that position before Fantasy Suites? I literally think that it would have been another argument between the two of them, and maybe who would have known? She would have sent herself home before Fantasy Suites because of that. But
Maybe. Or she would
why
have been prepared.
or prepared,
Or
but
she would have
also
been
like
prepared because now it's too late.
but why didn't Clayton bring up the fact that he holds sex that important to him too? Like it's the
Mm.
conversation was in both of their hands prior. Susie could have brought it up, like Caitlyn said, or Clayton could have brought it up. He's the one that's running the show here. Why couldn't he be like, how are you guys feeling before Fantasy Suites? Like, what can go down in Fantasy Suites? Like, how do you feel about that? Like, what are your values when it comes to that? Like, he could have asked the women those questions prior. We shouldn't put the blame on Clayton or Susie at the end of this. Like that conversation could have been had. I also want to go back to the point where Caitlyn said you genuinely fall in love with more than one person. I mean, I guess I maybe don't have a position to even say this, but I just don't believe that that's even possible in life. I mean, I know I've never been on the show. I know I probably will never be on the show, but I just physically can't comprehend how you can be in love, genuinely in love with more than one person, because my definition of love and in love is like that's your person. Like you cannot even see yourself with anybody else, like thinking about anybody else, like it's just impossible. Like you're all in with that person, and that's what love is. Like I mean, am I wrong? Like I guess maybe everyone has a different version of love, but like how can you be in love with more than one person? I'm sorry, I don't get it. Especially three. Like two, maybe I'll be like, okay, but three, Clayton, in love with three women? Like, are you okay? I don't get it.
I mean, no, it's valid. I can't imagine either. I can totally imagine being infatuated and wanting to sleep with three people at once who are really hot and I've been dating for a while.
Yeah.
But to be like completely in love and like wanting to get engaged, that would be really hard. But then again, we're not in that position. And I mean, he has like 30 beautiful women flocking towards him. He's thinking with his downstairs area a little bit. It makes sense. I do want to jump around here because, he was on Off the Vine, Kaitlyn Bristowe's podcast, and he said that Caitlyn asked him if he picked the order of fantasy suites, and Clayton said that he didn't. The producers suggested, the order and then convinced him on the order, and he went along with it. So, Allison, what do we think about that? Because I wonder if Susie went first and they had this conversation, things might have changed. He might have not slept with Rachel or Gabby, but now it's like because she went last, the damage has already been done.
I think there's definitely a huge chance that production chose this order because of the drama. They've had at least 5 days with Susie doing ITMs, talking to her one on one because he's had these dates with
Mm.
other women, or even before this week happened, doing hometowns. She has a lot of downtime. And maybe she said to the producers, to her handler, they've talked about sex. Maybe she mentioned how maybe in passing, if Clayton, slept with other people, I don't think I'd ever be able to get past that. And maybe that's like a little nugget in their ear and they're thinking to themselves, oh, TV, let's put her last. And then maybe that's combined with them, having similar sit downs with Clayton and him saying, I can see a future with all of them, but I think right now Susie is my top pick. I can really see a life with her. Boom, you have television right there. So I think it's because they have separate interviews and times with each of them individually that they're able to craft these moments. They know who's his front runner at this point. They've talked to Susie. She's expressed, that she wouldn't be able to get over this. They've had similar conversations with Gabby, who's, like, hey, go for it. I don't really care. They're like, great, we'll slap her in the middle. She doesn't really care about anything. It's all kind
Mhm.
of just puzzle pieces coming together at that point.
Yeah, I mean, when you have so many genius manipulative producers getting involved in your relationship, they know what it's doing, so they're trying to make it worse. And that's why I brought this point up yesterday, is that I feel like Clayton and Susie should have just taken the overnight date so that they could have had the conversations off camera without producers getting involved, because this was their one opportunity all season long to talk off camera for hours at a time. And, I know that they were heated and needed some time away from each other, but it's just like they should have taken that opportunity, and maybe producers didn't want them to because they kind of wanted to capture every conversation because this is so much more intriguing than Rachel and Gabby's, conversations right now because this is where the drama's at. But that was just such a missed opportunity for Susie and Clayton to not get that alone time. Gianna, how do you think that alone time would have went for them in the fantasy suite? Do you think they would have talked all night? Do you think Susie would have ended up sleeping with him as well?
I don't think Susie would have slept with him, like, at all. I
Of course
really
not.
think because of what she said about sex, that wouldn't have happened, but, I really do wish that they took the time to talk it out, um, just because I do think that this like, exactly how all of us are talking right now, like, they could have had these exact conversations, you know what I mean? And,
Mhm.
like, maybe Clayton would have admitted, like, "I did just wanna sleep with people, like, I was excited and I was horny and I needed to get my
Horny? Yeah.
whatever." Um, but I'm also wondering if like I don't even know, like I don't know. This whole situation has my brain like fried at the end of the day. Um, but I think Susie was so hurt in that moment. And we heard her say a million times she couldn't get past it, couldn't get past it. And I think that Susie, at the end of this conversation, thought that Clayton's intentions were to just sleep with everybody. So Susie was like, hell no. Like, I don't think she felt comfortable going into the fantasy suite because of that reason, you
Mhm.
know? And I think that's why she didn't go.
Yeah.
I don't think she saw it as an opportunity to have a conversation off camera. I think she was genuinely uncomfortable about what was going to happen between her and Clayton and if he was going to still try to like make a move on her or not. So, yeah, I think that's like ultimately why she walked away, but I do wish they had a conversation because I think they could have worked it out. I really do have faith that they could have worked it out for some reason.
And maybe they will work it out. When he calms down, we don't know if she's coming back or not. Clayton also wanted to make it clear that he is not a gaslighter, regardless of what fans are calling him. So he's seen the backlash. Bachelor Nation's been going crazy. This is the last point we're going to make of today's video. So the definition of a gaslighter is, because we need to make this clear because it's been thrown around a lot in Bachelor Nation. Gaslighting is a form of manipulation that often occurs in abusive relationships. It is a covert type of emotional abuse where the bully or abuser misleads the target, creating a false narrative and making them question their judgments and reality. Now, the last time we heard gaslighting in Bachelor Nation was the Katie and Greg situation. Everybody was calling Greg a gaslighter. Allison, what are your thoughts? Do we really think that Clayton was gaslighting Susie? And are we throwing this term around too loosely?
I definitely think we're throwing it around loosely, not because it doesn't occur a lot in daily life. And I think it's great that, people are doing more research and able to identify really toxic things in relationships. But at the end of the day, majority of Bachelor Nation, the three of us included, are not psychologists. Like, we haven't studied these things. We don't know exactly how they present. We can't really dive in deep and, diagnose something or define something the way that a mental health professional could. So I don't know if it necessarily fits the definition. I don't feel comfortable saying that. I would say it did feel like Clayton was putting a lot of the blame back on Susie. Everything she mentioned was put back on her. You invalidated what we had. This is because of you. Why didn't you
Mhm.
tell me this sooner? If you told me this earlier, we wouldn't have been in this position. So whether that's gaslighting or not, I'm not sure, but it did feel like he was refusing to take any accountability for what he'd done and instead was just placing all of the blame on Susie. And I mean, it would make me question a lot of things if suddenly every concern I was raising to my boyfriend, future fiance, was put back on me. That's got to be a very challenging
Mhm.
and kind of mind spinning situation to be in for anyone.
Gianna, was Clayton gaslighting Susie?
Now, to echo Allison, we're not psychologists here on Shared News. Like we can just make judgments based off of what we're seeing. So no one come at us, please. Just the only thing that would make me think that this was a little instance of gaslighting is the moment where Susie started questioning her own feelings and wondering if they were valid or not. You know, she was off privately without Clayton saying to the cameras, like, now I feel bad that this is all my fault. Like, should I have not even said that to him? Should I not have even brought it up? Like, why did I do this? Like, I did ruin it. I ruined the night. So, you know, taking that definition of gaslighting, making the person question their judgments in reality, that's what happened with Susie because of the way that Clayton was reacting. Do I think that he was intentionally gaslighting her? No. I think gaslighting is a tactic that people in abusive relationships use on purpose. They are purposely manipulating the other. They are doing this on purpose, making the other person question everything. Clayton was just simply like going off the rails a little bit, in my opinion. I don't think he was sitting there being like, now I'm going to gaslight Susie in this moment. So, no, at the end of the day, he wasn't gaslighting her on purpose. But like I said, that moment with Susie questioning her own feelings, if they were valid or not, was the only thing that would make me think, or maybe what made everyone else think, that this was a form of gaslighting.
Yeah, I think he was just playing a little bit of victim, like putting all the blame on Susie, like Allison said. And I think that was kind of the issue is that Susie felt so hurt by him and felt cheated on, but yet she was still trying to understand his point and like have a reasonable conversation. And with Clayton, he was just unable to do that. So I think that this situation kind of just showed that the two of them are just not meant to be together and they have different styles of communication. They have different, they just have different moral or whatever. Like they're just different people to the core. So I don't think either of them are a bad person for this. But I just think that they're not meant to be together. So that's why I really hope that he does pursue this relationship with Rachel and he gets over Susie because Rachel is meant for you, Clayton. Get back with Rachel and let Susie be our reigning Bachelorette queen and put Gabby in paradise. Allison, and then Gianna, what are your final predictions for next week? How do we think this is going to go?
That's tough because I do feel like we did a panel with this a few weeks ago, and I, out of nowhere, was saying, I think Susie goes home third, and then he has down to the two, but it ends up with Susie at the end. And then all of this started happening, and I was like, what went through my
Mhm.
brain to make that prediction? Because I do not read spoilers. But what I'm hoping for more than anything, because I want Susie to be the Bachelorette, is that we do see a scene still in Iceland. You know, she's probably still in her hotel room at this point. He tries to go reconcile things with him. It does not go well. And then my hope for him is he does exactly what you said. He then realizes that he does have a great candidate. It's Rachel. She is wifey material. They have a great connection and they can live happily ever after. Do I think that's going to happen? No, because we have a 2-night finale. But in my dream world,
4
that's what would
hours.
happen. It's just gonna be chaos. I think it's genuinely I don't even know. He might maybe he's single. I think he might be single.
But you don't think they'll force him to be in a relationship with one of the girls just because that's like Bachelor PR and like, it's like the
No.
3-month contract where they have to stay together?
I think they'll just
No?
say, "You know what, buddy? We tried. We tried."
See, I feel like they're gonna find a way to make a happy ending, even if it's fake, because we've seen that on Bachelor before, where like couples will literally last 3 months. Like Katie and Blake broke up like the second week of Michelle's season. So I feel like they might try and at least give him something. They can't like leave him empty-handed, like even if it's fake. Gianna?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking single Clayton, like seriously. Like maybe they
Wow.
want to change things up a little bit. Like we can't always have a happy ending because if it does end with him being single, do you know how much buzz that's going to be on social media for them? They're literally going to be like the ratings for next season and like everything is going to be just through the roof. So I do think that he's definitely going to have another conversation with Susie. I don't think we've seen the end of Susie. We saw him knocking on a door in the teaser at the end of last week's episode. You know, he was
Mhm.
and Jesse was like, I have something that might change everything. And then we saw Clayton like knocking on someone's door. I also just can't wait to see the roast that Gabby is gonna give him, because we saw her flipping out in that teaser as well. She was literally like calling him out, being like, stop lying to me. I forget exactly what she was saying, but she was mad. And that's the first time we've seen her not happy this entire season,
Mhm.
which is gonna be crazy. And then obviously I can't wait to just see the whole, I slept with both of you and then they both run away crying type of thing. Like, how
It's
is
gonna
that
be
even gonna
so
end?
good.
Because that's the rose
Yeah.
ceremony. Like, how can that even possibly, like, I don't know. Like, the next 4 hours next week is going to be insane. Everyone buy your bottles of wine now, like maybe 2, because this is gonna be crazy.
Wait, so if he does end up single, do we wanna see him on Paradise, or do we think he should go back to Kira
No,
because she expressed interest?
no,
What do you mean
nothing.
no?
I don't wanna see
Put him
him
on
ever
Paradise,
again.
put him on the beach. I want him on the
No.
beach.
No, no,
I
no, no, no,
literally
no,
want
no,
him and
no.
Pilot Pete on the beach.
I bet you he's gonna like show up on the next season of The Bachelorette like a Blake move and just be like, "Hey
No
guys, it's
way.
Clayton," and I will flip out. I will
No.
flip out.
We
I
need
need
him on the
Clayton
beach.
to take a break. No, he's got to take a break from our screens for a little bit. Maybe in a couple years, maybe in like a year or two, but going right onto the beach, I think we all need a little space. We all need a little time.
All right, well then there you have it. That is our Bachelor recap, tea spilling live session for the week. That's everything we have to share with you guys. So let us know what you think in the comments down below, and be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell, because we got a big week next week of Bachelor Nation, and we'll be here to break everything down at Shared News. As always, I'm your host, Zachary Reality, joined by Gianna Gravelisi and Allison Van Dam. Our social media handles are on the screen right now, so be sure to give us a follow, come say hello, let us know any points you have that we didn't make, and thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.